guy. In San Francisco, you know, the people in charge of education are saying, we're getting rid of the test, we're doing all this progressive stuff. One of them basically, I think Allison Collins was her name, she tweeted and I think later deleted something saying Asians are pretty much like white supremacist adjacent, and they're like they're using the techniques of white supremacy in order to succeed in the country, and they're akin to the house slaves of the past that used to get close to the masters. They're house enners, in other words.
Whoa.
And she tweeted that. Asian community mobilized. They said, you know, these people discriminate against us. They treat us like foreigners. Fuck them. Let's replace them. And they did. And so the backlash against progressivism, the number one argument people have is it's a racist backlash, right? It's just an explosion of alt-right, white supremacy, QAnon types that are mobilizing and trying to attack progressives. How do you make that argument make any sense when you have Black and Hispanic people in New York rushing to elect Eric Adams, Asians in San Francisco, a very liberal city, getting rid of the progressive school board? You know, how many more of these things have to happen before we realize there is a serious and legitimate argument, a good faith argument to be had about all of these progressive positions, and you can't just shut people up by calling them racist?
There's definitely a serious and real argument against a lot of these progressive positions, and you definitely have both things happening. You definitely do have people who are closed-minded, who are attacking these things because they don't want open-minded perspectives. They don't want open-minded perspectives being talked about, and they want to keep the worlds in a sort of narrow lane. But then they have a lot of people that are, particularly in some communities where people are struggling and working hard, and they want to be acknowledged for their efforts, and they don't want to be boxed in by these crazy type of rules where they're getting rid of gifted classes and they're making, a fucking lottery, which is the craziest idea I've ever heard. For people to get into colleges, that's nuts. Like, what is the purpose of working hard? You're supposed to reward people. Mm-hmm. This idea of equality of outcome, like Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot, how dangerous it is to have equality of outcome. And, my perspective has always been that you can't have equality of outcome unless you have equality of effort. And then you have to have equality of opportunity, and those things aren't real. Like, mm-hmm. you can't have, you're never going to have, you're going to have obsessed people. You're going to have these folks that figure out a way to be far more successful than other people. That's one of the reasons why we love sports. When you have a guy like a Michael Jordan who's just so obsessed with victory, and you can see it in his eyes, this laser focus, and figures out a way to be substantially better than everybody else. That's magic for us. We love super winners. Mm-hmm. We love, and that's equality of outcome eliminates that. Mm-hmm. The sports are the great testing ground for effort and all the factors: genetics, intelligence, coaching, technique, the ability to assess problems accurately. Mm-hmm. They're the great testing ground for that. And when you're a person who wants to think that equality of outcome is a possibility, that's what flies in your face.
The philosopher Robert Nozick, famous philosopher, used to use this thought experiment about justice. And he would basically, I think at that time he used like Wilt Chamberlain as the example because that was a time. But, if you think about the NBA, no one really, very few people are upset at LeBron James, and Kobe Bryant, RIP, and all others for the fact that they make so much money, because you can see how much better they are than you at the thing. And that the process by which they got from A to B is untamperable, right? There is no paying your way into being great in the NBA. There is certainly the luck of genetics, but then there's a lot of genetic great athletes in the world. The ones that make it there, it's like sweat equity is what got them there. And so people have the sense that the process is fair. And when people feel the process is fair, they don't care about whether the result is equal. You take it to most other domains in life, people are not sure the process is fair. And I think that's the key difference between when people look at unequal results and complain and when they look at unequal results and don't. And I think there is far too much of focus on results. What we really care about as human beings is that the process is fair. So we should be focused on making processes fair rather than simply looking at the results as if that's the indicator of fairness.
Yeah, and opportunities. the equality of opportunity, if possible to achieve, would be the most noble goal. Like, give people an opportunity to try things, give people an opportunity to experience things, give people an opportunity to learn. And that's not the case. You know, there's a giant disparity between good schools and bad schools. And that's not an insurmountable obstacle. That's not something that can't be fixed. That seems
difficult to fix, though.
Very difficult to fix, but it's not breathing underwater. It's workable. Yeah. It can be done. You know, things change over long periods of time because the economics of a region change, industries move in, job opportunities open up, things change. But there's certain things in this country that just have been stagnant. There's certain areas that have been stagnant. And when people talk about equality, that's where it's all fucked. It's not all fucked in equality of outcome. It's all fucked in equality of opportunity.
Equality of opportunity, though, is, you're
never going to fully achieve it.
We're never going to fully achieve it, for sure, because so much of what matters in life is an effect of the private domain. It's like, how did your parents raise you?
Right. What kind of loving environment did you come from? Were you abused?
Right. Like the fact that I had two parents, that were highly focused on my education, that were teaching me math and reading me books before I got to kindergarten, that had high expectations. So if I came home with like, I couldn't just like come home with a B and be congratulated, right? Like I wouldn't. That's the household I grew up in. It's a household a lot of people grow up in, including many of the Asian families that get their kids into the elite high schools in San Francisco and New York and so forth. It's very difficult to substitute for that because so much of what builds you, your incentives, your personality, what you care about, your values, isn't mediated by policy or by the government, but rather in the home.